I'm going to start something. It's not called AA, but it's called whatever the name. I got to come up with a good name. Find a gymnasium,
Mm.
and in my local, West Hollywood area, say, if you think this way, let's meet. Let's meet up.
Mm-hmm.
See what we can. See who shows up.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a very special guest today, former NHL player and all-around great guy, Sean Avery. How's it going, buddy?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You're up in Toronto right now. It's getting dicey up in Canada these days.
Dude, so first of all, I flew from LA, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You get let on the plane to fly to Canada from LA. When they scan your ticket in LA, you have to have a mask on. To get on a plane to fly to Canada that's in LA. So they're not even cool enough to say, the captain comes on why does the captain come on when we fly into Canadian airspace and say, okay, all of a sudden, yeah, it's like, okay, we're in Canadian airspace now. COVID is alive and well. Put your mask on.
It is. It does all seem kind of random, doesn't it?
Well, no, I don't. Random. Funny you should say random. They also now have random testing. So when you're getting off the plane, they have two people standing there using their eye test to do a random choice. Like, hey, you need to do a random test for COVID. Can you imagine that?
What kind of training does that involve exactly to be able to pick somebody out of a crowd?
Well, didn't they have dogs early on in the pandemic that could smell the COVID?
Well,
What happened to those dogs?
They said that was true, but I don't believe that.
Well, yeah, exactly. I would believe a dog before two civilians dressed up as fake cops. I mean, the whole thing is...
It's kind of silly, yeah. But it's kind of one of the reasons I started my other show, the previous one, American Party, because we just like to talk about how, the left versus right paradigm isn't really reality anymore. Maybe it never really was, but it certainly isn't anymore. It's more about like people who want to be left alone and people who are in power that want to exert that power over other people. And that what I eventually arrived at is that the only way that that's possible is if we have an ignorant and lazy citizenry that refuses to take responsibility for, the governing of their country. Now, or you could reduce that all the way down to the governing of their communities, to be honest. I think that's probably more appropriate. So, we started.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I've tried to a couple of things. I've tried to turn over a new leaf and just let things slide, But as I got off the airplane in Toronto, I had this level of contempt for all of my fellow passengers that were walking up to customs with their masks on, right? And because it's an interesting point that you bring up. Driving around this morning with my dad, and I'm asking, like, who are your neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
Who are these people that are putting up with this stuff? And how long will they be such servants to this insanity? And it like, I don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you don't get anyone that says, I want to be like him. And I'm not saying, that I want to be like him, or, hey, he's doing it, why can't I do it as well? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's an important part of it, right? So, I make this point a lot on this show. The vast majority of people will never be in a formal leadership position at any point in their life. They're not going to be the captain of their team or the manager of their office, or most people won't serve in the military or be a police officer. Most people won't be a CEO of a company, but everybody's a leader. You know what I mean? And I think that's especially true. I've actually seen the way that you handle a lot of these issues change since you've had a kid, right? Like
Yeah.
that's,
So,
I wonder about that. Do you think becoming a dad inspired you in some way to take more action in shaping the world around you?
I mean, I think in certain situations it has, and in
Mm,
certain situations I have taken my foot off the gas, right? Because one, I don't think my wife is as um, gun ho as I am
mm,
as far as fighting the insanity. So I have to balance that line. But yeah, I mean, then on the other side of it, it's like, do I want him to be a reflection of me?
mm,
Because I think that's going to serve him in the future. You know, who knows how bad it's going to get, or whatever he's doing, right?
mm,
From a sports standpoint. So it's this interesting thought that I have running through my head on a daily basis with every decision. Um, and you know, I also am trying to break into a world that, interestingly enough, pretends that they are something, but I feel like a large majority of them are not what they seem.
mm,
That being the entertainment world. But again, you know, like this morning, I opened Instagram, and a guy that I've been friends with for a long time, Andy Cohen. And I like Andy. I like Andy a lot. But he posts something on his Instagram, on his private Instagram, mind
mm,
you, which is just his friends and family,
right.
a picture of Ivana Trump, and it's like the wrong Trump died. And that's intense, bro.
Yeah.
That's intense. I mean, I've never, first of all, I don't hate anyone that much
Mm,
that I would ever, and I don't even think that's really a funny joke. Like, it's not comedic to me. You know what I mean? Seems lazy. So is the divide growing? Is it coming closer? I think we're in this interesting inflection point where I do believe that it's actually becoming closer,
mm,
but people are afraid to just break through and
yeah.
say, I can't, you fuckers are now even too extreme for me.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's almost like you're seeing a little bit more more and more fucked up activity right now because it's like the last gasp of people who are
Yeah.
trying to squeeze every little bit of water from the stone of division. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
it's like that saying, things typically get better before they get worse. But people really need to, and it's one of the reasons I do this show, to have good conversations with people, because we at the individual level within ourselves and then in our social structures have to start fighting against our instinct to be tribalistic and dance on other people's graves, like both figuratively and literally. You know what I mean? Like if the point is to find the correct answer, build consensus around it so we can all live in this world together, then how does it help to be like, hey, I beat you, fuck you? You know what I mean? That's not that shouldn't be part of it. The celebration after in a social dialogue should not be part of it at all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few people that like I admire right now. I have this constant Alan Dershowitz in my head, just Dershowitz in the sense of what he represents, you know,
Mm,
um, like the beauty of debate and freedom and the ability to uh, disagree
mm,
without such insanity. But I've also been drawn to, you know, there's a lot of television shows on TV right now, or streaming, or whatever we would call it. And like, I watched The Conversation on the plane,
mm,
this the Coppola movie,
right.
and I just watched the original Red Dawn,
Mm.
which I had never seen. Which is, have you seen it?
Oh yeah, it's
You
great.
must.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking while I was watching it, this is probably from a military standpoint, like maybe you guys like that movie Red Dawn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
It's a bit of a like almost a fantasy for military dudes. Like, man, I get to sleep in my own bed and fight. Shit, that's awesome.
right,
Yeah,
right. Or just pack a bag and head up to
yeah,
the
yeah.
mountain ridge where I grew up with my dad.
Hmm.
Like, but you know, and so there's that, and then I've been watching all these old Coppola interviews, and everything he says is so on the mark. Like nothing he says, even when he takes shots at his own business, and I'm talking if I'm watching videos that are 10, 15 years old,
Hmm.
there's so much truth in what this guy's saying. And if I was going to be a professional athlete and I was a young kid now, who would I identify with, right? Like think about young filmmakers now. Who are
Hmm.
they identifying with? If they're not watching old Scorsese or Coppola stuff and listening to the words that they're saying, who the fuck are they tapping into? And then that's what we're getting. So I don't know,
Well,
you know?
the only guy out there directing that I can think of off the top of my head is Antoine Fuqua, right? So he does a good work like that, but half of his friends are Navy SEALs. You know what I mean? That he's like he works with Chris Pratt a lot. He's chosen to work with people who and do projects about people who actually help the country instead of leaning into all the victim shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
I think is good. And they also don't do it in a way that's like over the top machismo or look how strong we are compared to you because you're weak. It's not about that. It's about, hey, this is a group of people that are strong and that strength benefits all of us. That's the point, right? So you can make your
yeah.
point without denigrating other people. It's yeah, Dershowitz is good at having difficult conversations. If you're looking for somebody for your show, he's finishing a book right now, so it'll be a couple of months. But Peter Boghossian is a good guy
Oh yeah,
that talks about having difficult conversations with people.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's
But I also find myself, I find myself right now sort of just separating myself. Like, I don't know. I've kind of, the debate and that fire to debate inside of me sort of weaned a little bit. But I also think maybe I'm sitting back and watching um, springtime
mm,
in the sense of like people and maybe just awakening a little bit. Um, but it's tough. I mean, I'm in like this weird, I'm in this weird tough position where you still got to be careful, you know. And
mm,
I hate the fact that I am in a position like I would have loved to have been at the height of my professional athlete powers in this sort of climate because it just would have been on, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
It would have been on, and I also have contempt for today's stars, athletes,
mm-hmm.
professional athletes. I mean, like LeBron the other day. You obviously, I'm sure you guys have talked about it.
Sure, yeah.
What goes through that guy's fucking head, man? I mean,
I don't
whoa,
know.
whoa, dude. But you know, he doesn't. There's no consequences to that because Disney or whoever, no one in a position that he works for or in an authoritative position, because he does work for people.
Mm-hmm.
He has no consequences. No one's ever going to say anything to him. And you know, that's the guy that kids look up to. I think on maybe on basketball courts across the country. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm totally. I mean, Nike still sells his shoes, so he must be doing something.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's really important in society who the heroes are. Because it used to be dad, it used to be first responders, it used to be members of the military, it used to be statesmen, not politicians, but statesmen, like people who really sacrificed to make this place better. It used to be the women who left the home and took up industrial work during World War II so we could win that war, right? It used to be those people who, and it was almost entirely defined by what you were able to, what sacrifice you were willing to make the country, your community, and the people around you better and safer.
Right.
That was the defining factor. And now it's more like, are you are you at a level of popularity, fame, and wealth that I can aspire to? That's now what we heroize, and it's become a big problem, right? I mean, it's we're seeing the results of it now.
Yeah, that's scary because, you know, if I'm measuring it on that sort of uh, grade book, who would I pick at this point? Like, who would I pick? I mean, Chris Pratt maybe is an example where I can go. At least Pratt doesn't hide that he's a Christian,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Like I'm
Have
not,
I
but I'm
heard?
glad that he's open about being one. Like I don't believe in any of that, but I'm really happy that he's open about who he is as a person. I like that about him.
I absolutely, but I would like it if he was a little bit more open,
Mm.
right? I guess what line do I respect? Like
Right.
how far? Because he's at the height of his power right now, and how far could he push it? How far could he push it without it actually really hurting him? You know, this pro-life conversation. I mean, I'm just guessing, but I'm assuming that Chris Pratt is probably pro-life.
Mm.
I would say that that's a safe bet. Um, does he just, so it's like, well, why doesn't he step up and say something now if that's what he believes in?
Yeah, that's a
And
good
if he
question.
doesn't, and if he doesn't, I'm still going to respect him. I just want to hear it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'm half in on the whole Chris Pratt as one of those leaders to me right now.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then where do you go to find Novak? I guess Djokovic, in a sense, he's the hero.
Mm.
He's something that maybe we'll write about or read about in books in 50 years or 60 years.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I mean, regardless of what your core values are, if you're willing to obfuscate those core values or even act against them because of your career, I'm not into that, man. Like that. I've definitely lost money because of things I believe.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
I know you have
For
as well. You've been pretty outspoken about a lot of stuff over the years.
for sure. We're seeing it with some of the baseball players now saying that they're just like, we're not going to Canada to play
Mm?
because they're not vaccinated.
Right? Yeah.
So that's cool.
Mm?
That's cool that they're guys are, and again, this isn't because I'm some fucking crap wacko anti-vaxxer. I'm against people doing things that they don't want to do.
Mm.
That's all.
Yeah.
So if these guys say they don't want to do something and they're now at the point where they're not afraid to put their hand up, then I commend them.
Well, that's what it takes, right? It takes open consensus to inspire other people, and regardless of what you might think as a professional athlete or an actor or a business leader or somebody that's got a large following of any sort for whatever reason it happens to be, people do look to what you're doing. Like you should be, if you're going to accept the fame and the reward from that, the money and all that stuff, you better damn sure accept the responsibility for it. But I think it's interesting you talk about some of these super divisive issues. I believe that the things that bind us all together are so much greater than the things that divide us, even inside of the most divisive issues. So think about mandates and the Roe thing. At their core, they're both about body autonomy, right?
Yeah.
About personal, which is the ultimate version of personal liberty, by the way, is body autonomy. Now, you can disagree on the particulars, and people will. But at their root, from the starting point of both of those arguments, these two groups of people who could not, in perception, they couldn't be more unlike or whatever, are making the exact same argument, and nobody will take the time to recognize that that's what's happening. You know what I mean? And that's really problematic to me.
No, the only time you see it is the occasional Instagram video of like a man on the street where I see these videos where the guy will say to um, somebody who's pro-life, so you're my body, my choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, does that apply to um, the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
And, and then they'll kind of think about it and they'll go, yeah, well, I guess you're right. But I'm talking about like, these are man on the street videos
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Well, it's
These
like
aren't,
when you isolate people away from the herd,
yeah,
you know what I mean? When you
yeah,
get them away
yeah,
from the mob that the media and politics are constantly trying to control, people in general are pretty reasonable if you can get them away from that stuff. So, but that's not going to happen if there's not an alternative. So, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is that a skill that we need, that anybody that has any kind of influence needs to adopt themselves and promote in others around them, is to stop shutting down as soon as they hear an idea or a phrase that they don't like. And here's
mm,
why. So just because someone's idea is a bad idea, that doesn't mean they aren't actively trying to solve what is a very real problem. So socialism, for example, something I don't particularly care for because it's stupid, but let's put that aside for a moment. Socialism is an answer to a question. It's a solution to a problem, right? It's a dumb answer and a terrible solution that we've seen fail every single time it's been attempted. But if your response to that, if somebody's trying to make a case for it or something that you think is social, whatever it is, if your response to that is just to say, fuck socialism and carry on with your day, not only have you done nothing to solve what is a very real problem, which is, by the way, kind of a dick way to go through life, just to say, hey, your solution's dumb, continue to suffer. That's a dick way to go through life. You've also left, to anybody who doesn't immediately agree with your position, you've left socialism as the only present and viable solution to that problem, so they're going to choose it, right? So bad ideas are not defeated by shouting them down. They're not defeated by ignoring them, and they're not defeated by censoring and banning them. Bad ideas are defeated by good ideas.
right, right. And yeah, I guess what's interesting is like when people talk about socialism today, what are they trying to solve? I mean, I guess let me ask you, do you think they're trying to solve the homelessness, the 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 income disparity
Mm.
between, I don't know, middle class and upper class or lower class? Like is what are they trying to get at with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, probably, I think that it's kind of a catch-all for any kind of like socioeconomic inequality, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because there's a lot of different causes of that stuff. Like the things that cause, or the factors that cause the socioeconomic inequality in rural West Virginia and what caused it in Compton are very, very different things, right? So one solution for that is not going to make sense. And
Right.
if you animate it that way, then, you know, people are just going to look at you like you're crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you think that the one tying factor between those two cities is employment opportunities?
That's certainly part of it, right? Like none of these are a single solution, but a lot of it is nihilism towards institutions that is caused by other things. So, for example, in rural West Virginia, people are very distrustful of the government. In Compton, people are very distrustful of the government, right? And it's just different parts of the government they don't trust. So,
Right.
in Appalachia, they don't trust, well, really any of the government, but like in inner city neighborhoods, they don't trust police for different
Right.
reasons, right? But it's still, and they also don't trust the idea that the idea of America is available to them, right? So in Appalachia, they might think it's because we're just poor white trash. There's no more industry here left, so whatever we have to do to survive is okay, right?
Yeah.
And then in an inner city neighborhood, it's like, hey, these people don't give a shit about us. They've done nothing to help us. They've actually hurt us a lot over the years. I'm talking about politicians and shit like that. They've hurt us a
Right.
lot. Why would we trust them? So they come to the same exact solution, which is we're going to do whatever we need to do in our mind to survive out here. And
Right.
the symptoms are the same, right?
Well, well, yeah. Think about what goes through the head of somebody that I guess feels like it's okay to rob a Walmart
Mm,
versus, you know, Gary who owns the local grocer,
mm.
right? Do criminals stop to think? I mean, I think they do. Or is it a tool to justify?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a justification sometimes, but it goes in so the first generation of something does what they need to do to get by, and then the second generation either improves or they get more deeply rooted in that ideology that that whatever they have to do to survive is okay. It's
Right.
justified by the fact that they're doing it for survival.
Right.
So yeah, for example, the crime bill, which affected your area. You live in LA. It affected your area probably more than any other city on earth, to be honest. And it was the impetus for the crime bill. We
Right.
we did we wrote some new laws to target some people who were causing a lot of damage and death, and we put them in jail because they were committing crimes. Good, fuck them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we can people give people give Hillary a lot of flack about it, but to be honest, when she said we have to get dangerous people off the streets and then we can start improving communities, she was correct about that. That's not an untrue thing to say. Now,
Yeah.
we did the first part. We put all those people in jail, and then we left all their children at home with no fucking dad, right?
Right.
And they with no dad, no improved education, and they fell into the same trap, right? Of nihilism. Like, well, this country doesn't work for me, so I'm going to do whatever I have to do to survive. We failed those people, and now they have kids who are out there failing again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So think about that. Like, is there ever going to be somebody that comes along that's smart enough that says, for every single individual that we incarcerate in this country, for every year that they're incarcerated, the community that they came from gets a 5,000 a year dollar stipend.
Yeah, to pay for like a Big Brother program for an actual decent human male to teach that young man how to be a fucking man. Like
Yeah.
to be honest, Jordan Peterson talks about this shit all the time about,
And why can't that man get paid to do that?
well, yeah, certainly we should be compensating. I mean, it's like a social worker essentially at that
Right.
point, right?
But does that exist outside of a what used to be Big Brother, which
N-
was essentially a volunteer job?
No. I've never seen anything like that before, to be honest.
Right. Right.
And we've never, like, it's not that we tried and failed. I don't think we even tried to do that.
I agree.
And to be honest, I mean, I understand some of the hangups people might have. Like, are we really going to send a bunch of, like, where do you go to hire those people? Are we going to send a bunch of white people because that's problematic to do that, right? Because there's different cultures and shit like that. It could be like, I go there, I don't give a shit. But
Yeah, but you find one strong leader from that community, and you give him a private enterprise and say, here's your
mm,
opportunity to build a business.
yeah, and we've seen it around. God, I can't remember what city it was in. I think it may have been somewhere in Arkansas. But this group of black dads, a bunch of like rowdy kids were getting into fights and shit at school all the time. So these 4 or 5 dads started going to school at lunchtime every day and just hanging out for 2 hours just to make sure there was nothing going on. Now that's leadership. That's
Right.
something that is desperately needed. But the reality of the situation is that most people can't take 2 or 3 or more unpaid hours out of their day and just go do something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I have no problem in my head thinking we've just put 50 billion on airplanes, pallets of money, and sent it over to Ukraine, right? And is it all for the sake of virtue signaling,
Mm.
or are we ever going to decide to save this country?
Yeah.
And privatization and opportunity and that money, man, I don't know. I don't know. But I guess who wants to be a politician? It's the fucking problem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so you're getting involved in some of this stuff in LA. Um, you guys have, well, your mayor's been gone for 6 months because he's the ambassador to fucking India now or something.
Yeah.
And your DA is getting recalled, I believe. They're counting those signatures now. So LA couldn't be in worse condition.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right. But we're about to go back to indoor masking. So, it's like, so again, hey, maybe that's the final, maybe that's one of the additional steps that need to be taken for, I hate calling them Democrats, but I have to call them something because that's, I guess, what they identify
Mm.
as, to say, we can't take this anymore, right? Like, you go to a store in Beverly Hills now, you have to wait outside in front of a guy with a fucking machine gun to get into the store
Mm.
until they let you in. I mean, it used to be the safest probably city in America. And now they got guys with machine guns standing in front of stores. How do they think that that's normal?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, but you make a good point. Like, it's at some point, everyone gets fed up with unnecessary intrusion into their lives, right? Or being inconvenienced by shit for no reason. Like, everybody has
Yeah.
a breaking point. And what I would encourage people to do is, when you see people finally admit something or take off the mask or whatever it is, instead of I told you so, I'd be like, hey, welcome to the club, buddy. Let's go
Yeah.
get some work done. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's how you build a team. If somebody's wrong and then they get on the right side, like, what are they supposed to be? You treat them like a rookie for the next couple of months, like harass them and haze them, like, oh, you were wrong that whole time. No, what benefit does that serve? No, they're on the team now. Let's fucking get work done. That's
Yeah.
kind of the point, right?
Yeah. We don't have time. We don't have time for that. Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, but also it's almost like it would be nice to have a place to sort of band together.
Mm.
Like that's what's so interesting now is hearing people like I just I don't know, I listen to the No Agenda guys,
Mm.
and they sometimes address some of their, I guess they've had people that have kind of crossed over to the other side, like the Dana Peretti. Dana's uh, an executive, former executive, who still lives in California, and like I now have sort of a relationship with him, and it feels so nice, just to send a message to each other on Instagram, and have a laugh about something or vent about something.
Mm.
But it would be nicer to be able to have that in a larger atmosphere. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm to blame for that, right? Like, maybe I should, because I'm one of the people who clearly isn't afraid, maybe I should just get on and say, I'm going to start something. It's not called AA, but it's called whatever the name. I got to come up with a good name. Find a gymnasium,
Mm.
and in my local, West Hollywood area, say, if you think this way, let's meet. Let's meet up.
Mm-hmm.
See what we can, see who shows up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
those conversations are really important. It's one of the things I'm trying to do with this show. So I think that our tendency, maybe always, but definitely recently, has been to the process kind of goes like this. You identify something that you don't like that's going on in culture, regardless of what side you're on, and you look to talking points and organizations and politicians to solve those problems for you, right? But that's not how any of this works. Like the Constitution is of, for, and by the people. And, you know, sure, that means the people have rights. Like this is all supposed to work for us, but it's of, for, and by the people. I think the by is the most important part of that, because if the citizen isn't taking responsibility for their own action, their family, their community, so on and so forth, then these are the results that we should expect to get. Because people who desire power very rarely deserve it, and people who deserve it very rarely desire it. And you have, in the
Yep.
same way that you have to force yourself to overcome your tribalism and hate, you have to also force yourself to overcome the inclination to just stay at home and stay out of things, because getting involved is how you solve things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to create a bumper sticker. Um, I don't know, like a my body, my choice bumper sticker that sort of speaks to the irony.
Mm.
Fuck, you know, because it's almost like, that's, how do you even identify, right? How do you, how do you signal?
Well, I think everybody could, if that was a T-shirt, everybody could wear it. Because well, maybe it's true that somebody is both pro-life and pro-mandate, but I wouldn't think so. That seems like incongruent beliefs.
I think what you said earlier is true. I think once they're separated, they would have to logically address it. But, again, we watched this week Senator Hawley talk to a woman. I guess she was a woman.
She has no idea. Nobody does, really.
Talk about how anybody can get pregnant, right? and she was heated. Like it was she was upset. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking, lady. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, was she wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
she said,
yeah.
it's crazy, but it's, that's one that I have trouble with, because I can't, I have a hard, so one of the things that I've trained myself to do is when somebody wants to have an argument or debate with me, or if I'm witnessing an argument or debate between two other people, the first thing I try to do is identify everything that those two people have in common from their positions, right? Because I think that's the important part is we're like 98% aligned in theory, and then 2% different. And that's the whole purpose of America. Federalism, the idea that states can control more than the federal government, and then the idea of individual liberty, where unless it's something that negatively affects other people, you kind of mind your business and stay out of it, right? Those ideas are really important, but they only work if our level of involvement and understanding of other people is commensurate with our conceptualization of liberty. Now, there are a lot of people out there talking about their rights, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about their fucking responsibilities. And that's one
Right.
of the things I would like to get going here. And when I hear conservative people talk about just wanting to be left alone, I'm like, all right, cool. Why did you care when gay people were trying to get married 15 years ago? Like, how did that affect you? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, listen, you bring up an interesting point because, I remember, I don't know, 15 years ago when I was the one guy or the first guy that said, yeah, gay people should be able to get married. And I did it in a New York Ranger jersey.
Mm.
But now I go, so I used to be a gay ally, right? Like one of the early trailblazers.
Yeah. Just by saying something that was basic common sense, by the way. You didn't go out of your way to do anything. You just like, yeah, who cares?
No, yeah. And by the way, by no means am I some sort of trailblazing fucking hero because
Yeah.
of it. But now I go, okay, so I don't even know what to say now. I said, I say, what group who am I fighting for?
Right.
Am I fighting for a group that's being brainwashed by parents? Am I fighting for, you know, like this woman said to Senator Hawley, 1 in 5 who are trying to commit suicide? I don't even know. So many fucking letters involved now. I
Yeah.
have no idea, you know? But no, you do make an interesting point, and it's like, it's so funny. And trust me, the last year I've really been thinking about it. And obviously, when becoming a dad,
Mm.
it comes to the forefront. But like, I would love to coach um, a minor hockey team in the California
Mm.
region. But I also think to myself, how long would it take for trouble to start? Right.
It does seem to find you from time to time.
But and is that me not being able to adapt, or have the rules just changed so much?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people, they allow the rules to be changed for them. So Charles Barkley is a good example of somebody that just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
He made like an offhand joke about fat girls in San Antonio or something like that, and everyone's like, "Oh, you can't say that." Blah, blah. He's like, they're fat, man. What do you want me to say?" Like I didn't
Right.
like first of all, it's a joke, and second, it's kind of true, and third, I don't give a shit if you like what I say or not. I think
Right.
people allow themselves to be canceled. I'm not
Oh,
sure that like sometimes somebody actually gets hammered, but for the most part, I think especially at the corporate level, one person will tweet something about their company and they're like, "Oh, we've got to change." Like, no, you don't. You don't have to do
yeah.
any of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. I get.
yeah. Go ahead.
I. I, I guess the fear that I have now maybe is trumping the responsibility that I have.
Mm. I mean, I think that's true for most people. Like that's one of the impediments for all of us to do what's right. You know what I mean? Is like, especially when you become a business owner or a husband or a father or a wife or mother or whatever. Like now, it's the stakes are greater than just how it's going to affect me. It's going to affect my family and my business and the people who work for me and shit like that. Like, how far am I willing to go? And
Yeah.
do I have the right to jeopardize all of these other people's livelihoods? And I think it's a good process to go through to think about that because, you know, if you understand the stakes of something, when I see somebody who gets involved in something, like the military, for example, people who join the military knowing they may get fucking shot in the face or blown up or something, that's commitment to me, right? So you know that they really believe in what they're doing there. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important part.
So that's interesting because that sort of answers my dilemma, right? What's the breakthrough? What's the barrier? Like, I could I could create a team. I could
Mm,
say, you know what? I'm going to start a team for the best 12-year-old hockey players in California. I need some help. I need somebody to mildly bankroll us, and
mm,
I need somebody to do the administrative work
mm,
to make sure that we get into this league,
mm.
right? That we're accepted in and we meet all the qualifications. Because then I get to build my own program, and I'm not constricted by any of the rules.
Right.
Um, I don't have to play ball with the LA Kings Junior Hockey Association, right? I'll just start my own.
Right.
And that takes that extra, right now, it takes that extra step.
Yeah. But it's,
That's
there's a lot of people doing stuff like that. So our buddy here, Tim Kennedy, started his own school because he was tired
yeah,
of sending his kids to the schools around. He was like, you know what? Fuck this. We're just going to start our own school. And it has, like, they don't talk about politics at the school, but for some reason, the ideas of manlyhood and outdoorsiness and hunting and being able to protect yourself have been politicized. Those things are not political. That's just basic survival as a human being. You know what I mean? So being able to teach that stuff, being able to teach actual civics or have programs that teach kids how to do their finances, for example, because I know you and I went through high school not too far apart. I don't remember getting taught anything about how to manage like a bank account or something, or do my taxes or any of that shit. They never even touched on that stuff.
No, no.
So yeah, I mean,
I
the point
I
of
never.
all that is that they like you when the bigger any kind of institution gets, the less efficient it gets, both from like logistical efficiency, the like how good the product is that they're making, and then how much external influence can get into there. All three of those are bad things, right? So when you reduce the size of something and bring it back down under the control of just the people that are around here, now it gets better because our
Yeah,
voices, the voices of the people who are actually using that product, whatever it happens to be, get louder and the process gets more efficient. It's supposed that's why we created the system of federalist government because that's
right,
how we wanted all this to work.
right. Yeah, actually, it reminds me of this. There's a hockey player, former hockey player that I played against, Ryan Kessler. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he's living in Orange County, and he started his own, uh, essentially started his own program. It was a school for uh, hockey players. He started with one age group. He found 12 kids and convinced the parents to give him a certain amount of money for the year. They hired a teacher, and he started the school. It was a full-time job for him, essentially, during the season. And I think a year into the program, a school then came to them and said, uh, "We'll take over all your academics if you coach our hockey
Mm,
teams." And it happened fairly quick,
that's
you
a good
know.
idea. And
Um,
you know, it's there's a lot of issues going on in modern America, but I think teaching the process of taking a young boy and turning him into a functional man is the biggest problem. I think that's the biggest problem, and it's one
yeah,
that like you kind of sit at the intersection as a parent, one, but as somebody who has been a professional athlete, like athletics, whether it's team sports or jiu-jitsu is huge here in Austin, getting kids involved in that stuff and then seeing like going through the process of struggling to learn a new skill, right? Maybe getting dinged up a little bit in the way, having low level conflict with other people your own age, and then learning how to respect authority and learning how to become a leader yourself. That's a big deal, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
we don't do it anymore. We just hand out participation trophies and let our kids hang out in their bedroom and play video games all day. Like, of course, that's not going to solve the problems that we have these days. It's just not going to work.
Well, I imagine what it's doing to that community right now must be huge,
Mm,
right? I mean, you probably won't see the effects of it for five maybe 10 years,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's got to be that's got to be no. It's the word citizen. How do I say it?
Citizen, yeah,
Citizen.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny now. I feel like it has sort of a different. Uh, it's a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a word. Yeah, yeah,
Well, the definition, if you look in Cornell law, the definition of a citizen is a person who, by place of birth, nationality of one or both parents, or naturalization, is granted full rights and responsibilities as a member of a nation. So, rights and responsibilities, and one thing is built on the other. Like the only reason there are natural rights that we should expect, but not unless we put in the work. The responsibilities are like doing the things you're supposed to do is what makes all this possible. And not only for
right.
yourself, but when we shirked our responsibilities before, we created a world of people who have no sense of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't just stay with you. It's not just like, oh, okay, you're not just fucking up your own life, I guess. So everybody out there, it doesn't matter what position you're in. If you're rich or poor, if you're a 13-year-old kid, or if you're a 70-year-old retiree, or if you're a manager somewhere, if you're an employee somewhere, if you're a freshman in college, I don't give a shit. You should think like a parent. You should think like an owner. You should think like you
Yeah.
own the company. You should think like you're responsible for the people around you, because you are. Everything you do adds to or subtracts from our ability as a society to function.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, no, it's yeah. I I I learned and I've learned and felt something different today because of this. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And the other part of it is like I don't want to go down the tough guy road, because it, man, it's super easy to be suspicious of people that need help these days, because so many people like latch onto the victimhood thing and use it
Yeah.
negatively.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but and it's easy to blame all the stuff that's going on these days on the people who game the system. It's easy to blame it on weak leadership, but the reality is this is a result of all of us not holding ourselves and the people around us accountable. Now, who loves you more, the person that coddles you while you shove a fork in an electrical socket, or the person that slaps it out of your hand, right? Like, one of those is clearly more aggressive than the other, but what goal is it that they're trying to accomplish? You know what I mean? Are you trying to be this person's friend, or are you trying to help them? So reasonable people know that indulging weakness and bad behavior, whether it's in ourself, creating bad habits like eating shitty food or not working out, or in others by letting them get away with stuff, it never has positive results. Not ever.
Yeah. 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 No, I know. Trust me, it's I see it in sports now too. I think like these owners that own these teams, right? I don't know. I'm really bothered by coaches that are overweight.
It's really weird, isn't it?
It's so weird.
It
Okay.
doesn't
Yeah,
exactly.
and I'm not talking about like if a guy's 64,
Yeah.
you know. All right, once you get past 62, I think you get a free pass. But like guys in their 50s, guys in their fucking late 40s,
Mm.
like you're a general
Yeah, get it
of an
together, man.
army.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that should be a prerequisite,
Yeah.
no
So
matter what.
set the tone, man. I mean, that's what it's all
Yeah,
about. And then, the other part of it is don't let, because it seems like when an issue pops up in culture these days, that the solution just swings as far to the other side as possible. But that's not how that's supposed to work, right? We're trying to
right.
find the actual answer. So don't get too caught up in all of the tough guy stuff. There's still a lot of empathy required. So I think it's important for people to ensure that their skepticism about people that need help doesn't turn to nihilism, where you just assume that anybody that needs help is weak or predatory or something like that. Because people do need help, especially young people. They really need it.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
we all need it from time to time, but especially young people, and being cynical about it, that's not helping anybody. I mean, you're
no,
just at that point, you're just contributing to the net negative, uh, and you're doing nothing for anybody around you.
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right.
But I like how like you're a pretty uh, agitated about issues for a lot of the time, but every time I hear you work it out in your head, it always tries to come back around like, how can I solve this problem? And it's not about dunking on somebody. It's like, oh, I'll create a hockey team so I can mentor some kids, right? Like
Well,
that's what I want to do with this show. It's about finding actual solutions to these problems.
well, you're right, but is that because I immediately go into holding myself accountable? Like if I want something, I go, okay, well, I, how do I get it?
Mm.
And then I say to myself, well, what are you doing to get that? Right. And that, again, maybe that now comes back full circle to somehow I was instilled that
Mm.
as a kid or something
Yeah,
happened.
no, it definitely
Right.
is. It definitely is. And it isn't just that your parents taught you that, or your coaches or whomever it was, teachers taught you that lesson. It's that they reinforce the lesson by making that upward mobility or whatever you want to call it available to you.
Right.
And so the underserved communities, whether it's Appalachia or some other place or inner cities, not only do they not have people teaching them these lessons, but they don't have anybody showing them that they can actually achieve the goals laid out in those lessons. Somebody's
Right.
got to do this, and you make a good point. And I say it a lot too. People will people will routinely say, "Well, somebody's got to do something." Like, you're somebody, fucking do something, dude. What are you waiting for? Like,
Right.
nobody can stop you from being a better person. Nobody can stop you
Right.
from improving yourself. It's easy to look around at the state of our country, in the West in general, and believe that governments and institutions and systems have failed us. And there's a lot of truth in that statement. But
Yeah. I mean,
like, if you're not
I
doing something, then why are you even complaining about it? Just shut the fuck up.
well, well, yeah. And I don't want to beat up on myself too much. And certainly you fall into that category in the same thing as at least we're talking about it. Right.
Yeah,
And I think we're secretly talking about it because we want to attract more of these like-minded
yeah,
people for commerce, but also power and energy,
mm,
you know, to move.
yeah. I mean,
So
it takes a team to get some of this stuff done.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I mean, I like the idea of holding myself accountable first. Like, what did I do to cause the situation? And
yeah, yeah.
a lot of times the answer is I didn't do anything to cause the situation, but it does get you thinking about what you might do to solve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, but you're doing, I mean, again, you're doing that every day by just being one of the few that actually talk about it. I mean, somebody's got to take that mantle, right?
Sure, yeah, but it's like, I mean, you want to set the tone. You want to. Nobody wants to just. I don't want to add to and I don't want to add to the misery and just by pointing out what's wrong. But we need to find like real world solutions, and I think it's really so people. If you see somebody that's hurting or in need, or you see something that's fucked up, you should feel bad about that. That's a normal human emotion to feel, to see somebody that is in need or being fucked over by somebody. Injustice should feel bad to you. If you witness it, you should be like, no, I'm not going to allow that shit to happen around me. And you know, politicians and media have taken that inclination of ours to get angry or upset, in whatever way we get upset at seeing injustice, and weaponize it right to their ends. But breathe that in, breathe that
Well,
injustice, that anger and rage you feel when you see somebody being taken advantage of or harmed. Breathe that shit in and figure out a way to stop it. Don't let it move you in one political direction or another, because you're not going to achieve anything that way.
well, let me say this. I want to say this, and then I got to go.
Yep.
Okay. This is a good. I want now, okay, if anyone's listening to this, and obviously geographically it's important. I think it's no secret where I live. Uh, if you feel the way that I feel, let's connect,
Hmm.
right? Like, it's easy to get a hold of me. You got 3 different mediums where you can figure out how to actually send me a message. Let's connect, right? Sit across from each other and I don't know, see what happens,
Yeah. So if you're a man,
right?
if you're a man or woman out there and you see things in your community that you don't like, that you think you might be able to figure out a way to solve, at Sean Avery on,
I
like, literally go to at Sean
no,
Avery
I'm
and DM him.
that, honest to God, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
Fuck yeah.
one of the things I've been doing lately is we haven't actually published any of them yet, but I've been having just random people from the audience come on the show and talk about what's going on in their communities as well.
Smart,
Yeah.
smart,
I think that's something
smart.
maybe you and I should do one of those in person sometime soon out there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. That's
I'll see about getting it organized. We got a lot of people out there.
I would be totally down for that.
Cool, man.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for coming out today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, brother.
Um,
Thanks.
we'll do it again soon, and I'll hit you up about that other thing. Appreciate everybody listening. This has been Citizen.